Hi, hello. Welcome to the Kelcie Witch No Show. My name is Kelcie. I am your host, and I'm an alcoholic, baby. On today's show, I'm going to be talking about the next few days that I spent in Palm Springs, California at a rehab facility. I keep saying that I spent it in Palm Springs, California is because I'm from Kansas. So going to Palm Springs, California to go to rehab is kind of a big deal. Before I get into today's episode, I want to thank each and every one of you that listened to episode 1. If you're watching the video version of this, I am going to perform a personalized dance for each person that listened to episode 1. If you're only listening to the audio, then you are really missing out. I'm just joking. I'm not doing that. I will never do that. Please don't expect that from me. I really do want to thank everybody for listening to episode 1. I hope this episode is enjoyable, and if it's not, please don't tell me. Just keep that to yourself and keep listening. No, I'm just kidding. You can tell me if it sucks, but I will cry and I will talk to my therapist about it. Let's get into the rehab retelling. On Wednesday, I woke up traumatized because the nurse had woke me up several times in the night to take my vitals. I woke up about 8 o'clock and I went out to the smoking area. If you are or ever have been a smoker, then you would know that the first cigarette of the day is literally the best cigarette. So I went out to enjoy my cigarette in the smoking area. Everybody's drinking their coffee. I was way too shy to ask where they got the coffee at, so I just sat there. And then finally somebody offered me some coffee. Then they took me in there and showed me where it was. In the building where the nurse's station is, there was also a kitchen area off to the side, and it's also where the dining room was. There was a fridge and freezer combination thing that had food in it that anybody could eat. There was a sink, a snack area that was a free-for-all. That's also where the coffee was. I got some coffee. I couldn't figure out where the good creamer was, but I found the milk. I drank my coffee with milk for the first 3 days. Then on day 3, I found a whole mini fridge of a variety of creamers that I could have been using instead of drinking gross coffee. I survived. It was fine. That first day, I wake up, I have my coffee, I have my cigarette, life is good. And then the therapists come out and they tell everybody that it's time for the morning walk. It sounds like we're a bunch of dogs. I didn't think I could go on the walk because when you're in detox in the first 7 days, you literally can do nothing. You can't leave. You can't use the phones. You can't have your own cell phone. You literally can do nothing. So I assumed I couldn't go on this walk. I said, "Can I go?" They said, "Yeah." So I said, "Oh, well, hold on. Let me go change my shoes." So I go back to my room to change my shoes. And let me tell you what I packed. I packed for 10 days, remember? Slippers, Crocs, sandals. That's all. I packed 45 pairs of socks, though. I had no shoes that were suitable for walking, except for Crocs. So I threw my Crocs into four-wheel drive. I hoofed it up to the front, wait for me, and I go marching out the gate. And they're like, hold on. You have to sign out. I came back like, oh, I just was about to take off out of here. They didn't laugh. I expected them to. They didn't. That was a flop. I sign the paper and I walk out, and the only two people that I can see are way up the hill. I'm four-wheel drive in my Crocs, hoofing it up this hill to catch up with people because I don't know where I'm going. This is my first morning that I'm going on this walk. I have no idea where I'm going. I'm also very directionally challenged. Northeast, southwest, those words are not in my vocabulary. I don't know what they mean. I hardly know left and right. The fact that they just let me out of this gate, didn't tell me where I was going, didn't tell me anything, that was really bold of them. They could have lost a whole person that day and they didn't even care. But I finally caught up with John and Ronald, we'll call them, okay? They're my buds. I catch up with them. I'm not really wanting to talk, but John's wanting to tell me his whole life story. Go ahead, buddy. Do your thing. Do what you want. He's like, actually, I'm going to go the shorter way today. Bet. I have Crocs on. I would also love to go the shorter way today. So I turned with John, and he's going on telling me his whole life story, okay? He was some professional hockey player or something of the sort, and he was too good for the league. I heard the story so many times you would think I would remember it, but I have no recollection of the story as we're going on this walk. I know nothing better than to trust this man. He told me that it was his second time at this rehab. So I'm like, he knows the ropes. He knows where we're going. He knows what's up. So I'm following him. Not following him, but I'm walking with him. We get back to the facility and I find out that he was told already that he's not supposed to go that way, but he took me that way. I make a mental note, do not go on a walk with John again. He's going to lead you astray and who knows what's going to happen. Remember at the beginning of this episode how I said I'm from Kansas? So we have grass. Apparently in Palm Springs, they just have dirt. You guys know a cactus that looks like this, right? There were cactuses that look just like this growing freely in people's front yards. If you're from Palm Springs, you're from the desert, none of this is news to you, but it was news to me. I go back, I sit in the smoking area, and Ronald comes back from his walk. He sits down, he looks me dead in my face, and he says, "How did you like hearing about John's hockey experience?" How did you know he told me about his hockey experience? Smash cut to 2 weeks later, I've heard his hockey story probably 500 times. A lot of the day Wednesday just consisted of me meeting with a bunch of different people. I was able to meet with my therapist. I also did a Zoom call with the doctor and told her all the medications I was taking. And I told her that the Effexor, that I didn't really see a difference with anxiety or depression, so she doubled it. So I went from taking 75 milligrams of Effexor to 150 milligrams of Effexor. I recently just got off of that medication. If you have ever gotten off of Effexor or had to deal with the withdrawal symptoms of Effexor, I feel for you because those are some of the worst symptoms I've gone through, and I was an alcoholic for years. On Wednesday afternoons after group was the gender-specific outing. Girls would decide what they wanted to do and they would go do something, and boys would decide what they wanted to do and they would go do something. Since I was still in my first 7 days of detox, I wasn't able to go on the outing. So me and one of the girls were trying to figure out what to do in the afternoon. And we decided that we wanted to play a game. I went on a tour when I first got there. The lady that did my intake talked about the fact that they had games, but I didn't know where the games were located. All the therapists and nurses and everybody were meeting, and there was a window to the room, but the blinds were closed, and then there was a glass door. So you could see into the room, but only through the door. And I saw that there was somebody sitting there. So I told the girl that I was with, let me go in there and ask them if they have any games. I rip that door open. Y'all got any games in here? Literally everybody that works at this facility is sitting in this room, and I just busted open and pretty much screamed at them. They looked at me. They said, "We have a meeting in here every day at 3:00. I said, "Okay, so do you guys have any games in here or no? Can we help you find them after our meeting?" Yeah, I guess. So I left. The girl that I was with was supposed to be in that room with me as I was talking to everybody, but I opened the door and she realized that everybody was sitting in there and she dipped, which good for her because I would have done the same thing. But how dare her leave me? You know what I mean? After their meeting, one of the therapists comes and shows me this closet where they have all of these games. We picked Monopoly. We took it out to the patio area to play, and we start putting our money everywhere. The wind picks up and literally blows money all over the place. We decide that's not going to work. We pick up the Monopoly game and take it inside to the dining room area. We start playing, but we keep stopping to go out and smoke a cigarette. So we never end up finishing. After everybody ate dinner and had their meds, we all just sit around the patio area and talk for a long time. I ended up becoming really close with Ronald that night because we stayed up after everybody had gone to bed and just exchanged lots of personal stories. He really just became like my dude because we had a lot in common, and I just felt really comfortable talking to him and sharing things with him. That was really cool to make a connection that quickly, especially because it was somebody I'd never met before. I probably wouldn't just be friends with him had I met him just anywhere. So it was kind of cool that our paths crossed. Wednesday and Thursday kind of run together for me. So in this episode, I want to also add in Friday. Friday is the first day that I started taking notes in this green notebook. If you're watching on video, you can see my green notebook. I wrote everything in this notebook, and this notebook starts on Friday, November 18th, 2022. We had an assignment and I had to answer 3 questions from this worksheet that I had. The first question I answered says, "Today, I'm the most grateful for such an amazing support system back home. I would not be able to be here or have the want to be a better person without them. I'm the least grateful for not taking my anxiety med this morning. Group was hard." I remember going to group that day and my anxiety was so bad. I thought I didn't need to take a hydroxyzine in the morning because I thought it was going to be okay, but it turns out it was not okay. Question 2. The part of myself that I hide from others is how I truly feel because I'm afraid of confrontation. I always have an underlying feeling people are mad at me or upset with me, so I tend to bottle my feelings up and then almost always end up exploding later. The third question I answered was, my motivations in life are definitely all of the people I have in my corner, both family and friends. They constantly push me to be the best version of myself and are so supportive of me being here in order to get back to the best version of me that I can be. It's really cool to look back on those journal entries and assess where I am today versus where I was when I wrote these journal entries. Here's my journal entry from November 18th, 2022. Received a package from Haley and Emily. I said I needed to write them a thank you letter. I'm realizing now, over a year later, I never wrote you guys a thank you letter. So if you're listening to this, thank you for the cup. I left it at the airport in Dallas. Sorry. Bullet point number 2 for November 18th. I talked to Edward. I gave him the right PO address for people to send packages. Also talked to him about quitting my job when I get home, resigning in January and giving myself time to find something else. He said he had thoughts, but ultimately he wanted me to make my own decision. I think he wants me to reconsider, which I might, but we will see. I didn't have to quit my job. I just moved positions. Now instead of teaching 5th grade, I'm the behavior interventionist at my school. Speaking of my principal, I didn't tell her anything about what was going on when I left. She only got the vague message of, "I'll be gone for 10 days. See you when I get back." So she didn't have any idea where I was, what I was doing, or what led up to where I was and what I was doing. I wanted to write my principal a letter telling her the how and the why of where I was. I felt like she deserved to know what happened the night leading up to and the 30 days that I spent in rehab. I ended up reading this letter to her in person, and I would like to read that same letter to you now. I want to start by saying I'm sorry for leaving, 1, for so long, and 2, on such short notice. By the time I finish reading this letter, I hope you can understand the why behind my actions. On Monday, November 14th, I had one of the worst depressive episodes I've been through in a very long time, which scared me. To deal with this emotion and make it go away, I chose to start drinking. This is how I've continually dealt with depressive episodes in the past, so it was nothing unusual for me. Until the depressant side of the alcohol came out and took over. I had come up with a plan and was content in the thought of suicide. I had convinced myself that I was alone and everyone's lives would be so much better without me. I told my therapist and she called me to calm me down. It was then that I snapped back into my body and realized what I'd been doing and begged Edward to call someone anywhere to get me admitted. At this point in my head, I had only 2 options. Go to treatment for a multitude of disorders that I pushed away with alcohol, or I'd be dead by morning. So I called Prairie View, but they didn't have any beds available, so they referred me to CBH. Edward and I sat down and began the admission process over the phone. I wasn't sure if I was making the right decision or if it was some scam, but what I did know was that I needed some help and I needed it ASAP. So Edward booked me a one-way flight to Palm Springs, California for 6 a.m. and we started packing my bags. The woman on the phone told me to pack for 10 days, so that's how long I thought I would be gone, but boy, was I wrong. The whole flight, I was anxious, nervous, upset, angry, etc. I had no clue what I'd gotten myself into or how I let my addiction control so much of my life. I've known I had become powerless over my addiction and my life had become unmanageable for a long time, but I was too scared and nervous to admit it until it was so far out of my control that it was coming to extremes. And an incredibly and dark, scary place to be. So, yeah, this is me admitting out loud to my boss, hi, I'm Kelcie and I'm an alcoholic. You're supposed to say, hi, Kelcie. Anyways, when I got to the facility, I sat with a stranger that asked 4,000 questions. To be honest, I don't remember most of that, but what I do remember was asking how long people typically stayed here. I about fell out of my chair when she said 30 to 45 days. I told her that I was leaving after 10 days and going home. Spoiler alert, I didn't do that. That feeling of regret and feeling like I'd made a huge, dramatic mistake sat with me for quite a few hours, as well as the tears. Once I got to meet more people who were patients as well and began going to classes, those feelings completely dissipated. I went from I'm not like these people to I'm exactly like these people. From I don't need to be here to this is exactly where I need to be right now. I went from wanting to end my life completely to being excited to go to bed at night just to wake up to see what the next day would hold for me. To being excited about life, to being genuinely happy. I can't tell you how long it's been since I've said that sober and meant it. What I knew after the first few days was that I am in rehab, I am an alcoholic, and I am right where I need to be. What I didn't know was how much I was going to learn about myself, the friendships I was about to create that will last a lifetime, the amount of people that I have in my corner supporting me in my journey to being a better, happier, healthier version of myself, or the amount of confidence I would gain and how good I would feel because of CBH. That's the end of my letter. That's the first time that I've read this letter all the way through since I read it to my principal in January of 2023. And at the end, when I say the amount of people I have in my corner supporting me in my journey to being a better, happier, healthier version of myself, dang. That hits home because I remember writing that part of that letter and I didn't feel a single one of those things that I wrote down on that paper. Happier, healthier, better. I didn't feel any of those things when I wrote that. But looking back a year later, absolutely, I feel every single one of those things to my core, to my absolute core. I am a happier version of myself. I am a healthier version of myself. I am a better version of myself, and I will continue to be those things every single day. And I wouldn't be here in that spot feeling this good about myself if it wasn't for my journey, for my time in rehab. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, any sort of addiction, reach out. Tell them to reach out. Reach out to them. Get them in contact with me. Do whatever you can to help the people that you love themselves as well. My name is Kelcie Richno. Thank you for listening to the Kelcie Richno Show. Please give me a follow on whatever streaming service you're listening to this podcast on, as well as on all socials at KWitchno. Thank you for listening. Come back next week. I'll be talking about equine therapy, where I went to therapy with horses. Spoiler alert, I hated it. See you next week.